What's going on, everyone? This is the Raikaze here. Today we're going to be covering a very special Pokemon that has taken me to great lengths in previous tournaments, and that is going to be Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl has been released into Pokemon Champions, but there have been a few changes that we need to go ahead and dive into and see whether or not if this is actually a good thing or if this Pokemon has been severely nerfed. Grimmsnarl is known for its great use of the Prankster ability. Now, for those of you that are not aware, Prankster allows a Pokemon to use any status moves first in the priority bracket. So let's say if you're going to be doing a regular attack and Grimmsnarl is going to go for for example, Light Screen, the Grimmsnarl will go first. But now that is only a +1 on its priority because of the Prankster ability. But now if your opponent, for example, is using Fake Out, Grimmsnarl was always subject to that. A few things that have been changed in the game, of course, is that there is no such thing as the Covert Cloak right now. Covert Cloak was going to allow Grimmsnarl to ignore the secondary effects of moves, so therefore if a Pokemon was to use Fake Out on it, it was still going to be able to utilize its moves. But that item is not in the game as of right now, so we are not going to be able to utilize that. So the other item that Grimmsnarl tends to use more of the majority of the time is the Light Clays. Now what the Light Clay does, it increases the amount of turns that the screens are on. Let's say, for example, if it was the Alolan Ninetales using the Aurora Veil, instead of it being up for 5 turns, it'll be up for 8 turns. Subsequently, for those Pokemon that are using the Light Screen and Reflect, will also do the exact same thing. They will last for 8 turns instead of 5. Now, of course, if your opponent has the Brick Break attack or some other type of move that damages screens, then you're going to still lose that screen. So in the past, there was a high propensity that people did not run moves that typically destroyed screens, so you were pretty much okay. But nonetheless, you're still going to have to be careful because currently in the lower power format, people are starting to run those moves. Psychic Fangs, for example, that's being run on Lycanroc, for example, it will destroy screens. So you got Psychic Fangs, you got Brick Break, and I believe there's things like even Defog, but I don't think people are really going to run the Defog. But nonetheless, there are ways that you can actually eliminate your opponent's screens. Also Raging Bull on the different forms of Tauros as well. So there are ways to take it out, but nonetheless, we are still going to be focusing on Grimmsnarl. So now that it has the access to the Light Clay, you can boost up the defenses of your team. Now, in terms of moves, so the typical moveset on a Grimmsnarl usually will be Spirit Break, because you can drop your opponent's special attack by 1, and you're typically doing that because it's also Stab, because Grimmsnarl is in fact a fairy type. And also you would run your typical screen, so you'll go Light Screen, there we go. Then we will go Reflect, because you want to have your defenses boosting up for your team. And then typically your last move was going to be Thunder Wave. But as you can see, as of right now, Thunder Wave is in fact currently illegal. Grimmsnarl has in fact lost access to this move. With that being said, people are now like, oh, what are we going to do with Grimmsnarl? Grimmsnarl has been nerfed. Another move that it did in fact lose, nobody even really understands why, is False Surrender. Which that is a dark type attack where it acts like it's going to give up and then it just attacks, but I don't think the opponent can dodge the attack or something like that because it drops their guard. But nonetheless, it's not something that anybody really ran on the Grimmsnarl in the first place. So that doesn't really matter neither here nor there. So will we say that this is in fact a nerf to Grimmsnarl, that we no longer have access to the Thunder Wave? And what I will say automatically up front is actually no. Because Grimmsnarl tend to run in what we call the 4-move syndrome. You either wanted to have the Thunder Wave, or you wanted to use, for example, Fake Out, or you said, oh no, I'm going to actually go with my fast Parting Shot. So there's so many different things that you wanted to do with the Grimmsnarl, but then you also didn't want to only have status moves. Some people did run only status moves, but it all just depended on how your team was breaking down. So it was always a difficult thing for Grimmsnarl and choosing a moveset for it. And also, here's the thing. Thunder Wave was also not 100% accurate, so sometimes that actually costs you some things in the game. Yes, it was great speed coverage, but at the same time, there is now been a great nerf on the paralysis status, because you, instead of having, like, I want to say it's like a 30% chance of full paralysis or something like that, or it was like a 50% chance, but the chances of you basically being fully paralyzed has been nerfed down. Now, I've been paralyzed in one of the previous tournaments, and I was literally fully paralyzed 3 turns in a row. It made no sense to me. I'm like, I thought this thing was nerfed, but nonetheless, it is supposedly nerfed. Therefore, will running the Thunder Wave be as important? Not necessarily, because there's not that much, honestly. Well, I wouldn't say there is a great need for speed control. There's always going to be a need for speed control, but the way how the format has been running, if you were to try to paralyze something, the opponents may be going with a tailwind, and then they're still at the regular speed, and then there's other ways that they're counteracting that. So honestly, I won't necessarily say losing the Thunder Wave is going to be that important. I would say that you can actually pair it with another Pokemon, and I'm wondering if it's even still a move. Let me double check here. So we got Whimsicott, who is the grand prankster ability user right now, and I wonder if it has, yep, there it is. Cotton Spore drops the opponent's speed by 2. So if you were running a Cotton Spore Whimsicott plus a Grimmsnarl, right, this here is something that you can manage to control the entire field. So let's go ahead and we're going to see how this can in fact work, because I know you all have been able to see the one Pokemon that is more than likely taking over the Champions format by storm right now, and that is my boy Staraptor. So we're going to look at the Mega Staraptor, who has the contrary ability. But if you are going to lead off with this Pokemon, which this is what I would more likely recommend, you have the Intimidate ability, right? So if you have the Intimidate, and let's go ahead and move it to the middle so then you can see how this actually works. You start off with the Intimidate, then you Mega Evolve, then you switch over to the Contrary ability, which means any stat change that is about to happen to this Pokemon is reverse. So yes, people are going to have to gamble whether or not you are supposed to even lead off with either a Defiant Mon, or do you even lead off with a Pokemon to try to Intimidate, because in order to try to stop the Staraptor, and honestly this is a big hard try, is you need to lead off with an Intimidate so this thing cannot just pop off immediately, because if you allow it to maintain its 140 base attack and even any type of investment, and don't let this thing be adamant, then you're going to be really having a hard time, because this is a lot of damage. You're going to be running into issues where if you will say, hey, I'm not going to lead off with Intimidate because I'm worried about my opponent's Defiant ability, but then they just lead off with the Staraptor, they are not intimidated, they go ahead and Mega Evolve, and if you don't swap in an Intimidate before they get that Mega Evolution, you are about to get hit hard with this bird. But nonetheless, we'll say, all right, we got the Staraptor, right? We become the Contrary ability. We've already lowered the attack on our opponent's side of the field. The Grimmsnarl can then go with a Parting Shot, right? It doesn't actually have to go with a Reflect or Light Screen yet. It can go with a Parting Shot to raise, because normally it will drop the attack and special attack, but it will actually raise the attack and special attack of the Staraptor. You can also do it to the opponent, of course, but you know, that's if you want to. But nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. We're going to just simply do a side Parting Shot into the Staraptor. Staraptor is going to get a +1 on its attack and as well as special attack. We're not going to be worried about that. This Pokemon can then also run the Close Combat. So with that, it is able to do massive damage and then get a +1 on its defense and special defense right there. If you were then to do the Parting Shot, right, swap out, get into Whimsicott, run the Cotton Spore onto either your opponents, or you can even do Cotton Spore, I believe you can do it to the side partner and do it to the Staraptor, and therefore boost your speed by 2 stages, and you will be able to just 100% just take complete control of the game. Now, if your opponent was to be scared of, let's say for example, if you were running a protect, then you can also still do the encore. So that will be another option there. You also have options for your own tailwind if you want to just do your own speed control that way and just boost your own team speed. Or see, and this is where you have options. You don't even need to run all of these moves, right? But then you also have the option where you can, for example, go with a side charm, right? So side charm is supposed to normally lower the target's attack by 2, but if you do charm onto your own Star Raptor, again, you have just now gotten to, for example, maybe a +3 in your attack in just, what, 2 turns? And Star Raptor at all this time is still attacking. It's not stopping, right? So this is why I'm saying that the loss of the Thunder Wave is not that necessarily of a big deal, because Grimmsnarl is now able to pop off even better because it's not worried about doing speed control. Now it's going to be more offensive, more disruptive, because it's going to be changing your opponent's stats. And if they typically have a Defiant Mon, and it's more than likely going to be King Gambit, the parting shot is not going to work anyway, because Prankster ability moves will not work on dark types. So that means that you don't have to worry about using it if they swap it in, because it's not going to activate the Defiant ability and you're good to go. Now you will have to be worried about whether or not you're going to use a Spirit Break. So if you drop the opponent's special attack and they are Defiant at that point, then you are going to boost their attack. So be careful about that, and just choose whether or not if it's the right time to use your light screen, or if you're going to use your reflect, and then you should be good to go. All right. So I hope that this is a quick tutorial that helps you to understand that even though there has been in fact a change on the Pokemon, it not necessarily means that it's a true nerf, because with the changes in the game itself, you can still make this Pokemon even more dangerous depending on how you run it on your team. So that's just a quick little tidbit I wanted to go ahead and share with you all here today. If you're liking this type of content, be sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you'll be notified when the next video goes live. Also, make sure that you are heading over to my Twitch channel at Raikaze11. That way you can see when we are having some of our fun matches. We are doing our roulette series again. We are hitting up new and mega evolutions. We are in Pokemon Champions, climbing for the master rank, and even going higher. So make sure you're heading over there and checking us out. But at this moment in time, this is going to be Raikaze signing off. You all know what to do. You stay strong and you power up. And catch y'all later.